direct rather than use an OBS studio. So hopefully this records well and you can hear me and everything else. I'm just going to see what I can do. Chat. We will see. Anyway, so I'm going to be painting Jack Hollister from Solomon Kane. That's the game by Mythic Games. And I'm going to be using Citadel Contrast Paints. So first of all, we've got the standard Citadel Contrast Wraithbone primer, which is this here. By far, my recommendation to prime your miniatures before using the Citadel Contrast Paints. It gives a really, really good base layer, base prime, for the colours to really feel warm, vibrant, which is the kind of look I'm after with my miniatures. So, without further ado, we'll get started painting this in live time using my Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 1 brush, as per always. It's definitely worth getting yourself a decent brush that will last and will keep a good point. That's what you want. And you can do all the detail work with this one as well. Bit of water handy to clean the brush on regular occasions. And then we'll move on to the colours as well. So, we're going to start light and go darker. And we're going to start with his sleeves of his shirt. And I'm going to be doing that with a white. So, as always, one of the best Citadel Contrast Paints is Apothecary White. I'm going to start with Apothecary White on this. I'm just checking we are all good. Hopefully we're all good. Is there a way of... Just checking we're all good and live. I've got no idea if this records straight off this. So, we're going in with the Apothecary White, not being afraid to use a decent amount on here. Again, because we're starting with our lightest tone, it doesn't matter too much if you get it over the other parts of the miniature. Because ultimately, the darker tone colours will actually show through this. So that's fine. And, you know, with the Citadel Contrast Paints, you can paint different colours over each other to get different desired effects. So that's absolutely fine to do as well. Let's just check we've got... Yep, we're good. Awesome. Right, okay. Cool. I can now see the chat as well. So, let's get these sleeves done of the shirt first of all. And hopefully this video, as always, will show you how easy and how quick Citadel Contrast Paints work with your miniatures. I would say with this miniature will probably take an hour, because that's the standard time for like one miniature. And we'll see the results pretty much immediately. Now, he's not really got much shirt showing other than the sleeves, so I'm pretty happy with that. Oops. Try not to hit the camera too much. Now, moving on from the sleeves, we'll now move on to his skin. So a really nice skin color I've got at the moment that I really like using is Dark Oak Flesh. I have got Guilliman Flesh for a slightly lighter tone. And then if I can find it, I've got some Fire Slayer flesh for even darker, for a really dark tone. And then, it's weird. And then somewhere in here is a Dark Oak Flesh. So ensure before you start painting, you give the bottles a good shake, because it does need a good shake to get all of the pigment and all the activation fluid into the brush. And then we're just going to go over this. They also dry a lighter tone as well, so just be aware of that. Pretty much all the paints, especially with Wraithbone spray as your base. Okay, so going on to there. If anyone wants to put anything on the chat, by the way, I am keep an eye on the chat as well. It's been a long time since I did a live stream painting, and this seems to be going well. touch wood. Which bodes well for the rest of the paint jobs. Obviously, Joan of Arc coming very soon, so that's going to be high on the list of painting, and I'll be sure to do some live streams of that as well. So we're going in with the skin tone here. As always with Citadel Contrast, you're talking about one coat to paint. So that's the beauty of them, to give you that desired effect that you've got. Now, I will repeat that, obviously, and you can already see that the skin tone is starting to dry slightly. I'm just going to take that away from his eye a minute, because we had a little bit of pooling on Jack's face there. Okay, so that was the Darko Flesh. Whoop. I'm just going to alter the camera a little bit. Should be better. I shouldn't knock it quite so much now. Okay, so we got some trousers to do, some boots to do, the hair to do. And I think Jack would be a kind of a brown-haired, quite a light brown-haired fella. So let's go with, depends what brown I want to go with here. I think I'll go with a bit of snakebite leather. You know what? Yeah, bit of snakebite leather. It's kind of like a yellowy brown colour. Okay, so hitting this snakebite leather. I don't know if anyone can chuck on the chat. Is the stream actually working? As I say, this is the first time I've just used a stream direct from my phone. Unfortunately, OBS. Originally I was using OBS camera. But they've started charging for it, and it didn't seem to work. So I thought I'd just try this. And I'm not 100% sure it's streaming, especially with voice. So I don't know if you can hear me. Hopefully, the camera and the microphone are both working. And hopefully you can see as well on the camera that it's an immediate effect. I love this about contrast paints. As soon as you put in brush to miniature, you're getting those immediate results. Now, to get this brush, the Winsor Newton Series 7, it's not a cheap brush, but you're looking about £10 to £12. I just go on eBay usually and just grab one new from one of those eBay sellers. But they are well worth it. You can, I mean, obviously you can get cheaper brushes, just replace them more often, just to make sure you're having the nice tip. But it's up to it. Ah, brilliant. Thanks, Mads. So it sounds like it's all working fine, which is really good to know. I don't know what, we might be on a kind of HD 1080p as well, which is even better. I think we're going to go the boots, snakebite leather as well, the same as the hair, because I think Jack would have certainly some leather boots. So just going straight in there. And it's not being afraid to use too much paint. If you do get pooling on any of the recesses, like too much pooling, you literally just brush your brush across it and kind of spread that effect. I think it just went on the leg there, didn't I? A little bit. Should be all right. As we go around here. So I'd be interested to know if other people are 720p. Okay. Fair enough. I don't know if I'll be able to... Maybe I can change that. I don't know. Thanks, Mads. Thanks for answering the questions. I can certainly look to up it a little bit. I don't know. Perhaps it's dynamic to whatever the phone can handle. I don't know. Because I know it used to be that you could not stream directly from your phone live until you had 1,000 subscribers, which I haven't got, obviously. So I think they might have changed those rulings. Whether it's because I've had the channel for a reasonable amount of time now, and it's had relatively steady traffic. I don't know. Oops. Okay, there's one boot done. We go on to the other one. And I had, with the community over at Senjutsu, we were chatting, and I was talking about the fact of using Citadel Contrast Paints for when the miniatures eventually come through. And again, I would highly, highly recommend it to any brand new painters. If you've already invested it in just normal paints, Vallejo, Army Painter, whatever, or Citadel, then, you know, it's quite a hefty price to add on to that. However, you can use the contrast paints in conjunction with normal paints as well, of course. But it's just the effect these give and the ease at which you can do it. I just really love it. Ever since I was bought a set for my birthday. So, Mads, are you a painter yourself, or if so, what have you been painting recently? Do you use contrast paints? Or just a Solomon Kane fan? And that's the problem with these paint pots. I know people have put them into droppers. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Just need to get a little bit inside of there. Okay, that's the boots done. Put snakebite leather away. And just making sure to brush your paint. To just protect your brushes, what I recommend is just against the side, just a rotational movement against the side. That'll tend to get it done. And then on your kitchen roll, kitchen paper, what do you want to call it? Again, just wiping it down. Nothing too drastic. Nothing that's going to damage your paint, and then that would be fine. Okay. I think we'll stay with the browns for the tunic. I'm thinking, maybe I think wild would be too much. I think an Agorist Dunes. Agorist Dunes is a fantastic Citadel contrast paint. It's kind of like even a lighter version, I guess, and a slightly redder version of snakebite leather. So let's have a go at Agoros. And none of these paint pots stay open. And then we're going to do his tunic with this. Not his neckerchief. And not being afraid to use a decent amount of paint on this one. It is a very light tone paint colour. There's Agoros Dunes. I love this miniature as well. Such a dynamic pose out of the Solomon Kane. Ah, awesome. Do you own other board games, other miniature board games or tabletop miniature games, Mads? Because that's what, it's the miniature games that got me started back up painting again. Just to see the difference in the pop when you put them on the board and the immersion that you get when you play the game is so huge. And, you know, these Citadel Contrast Paints has enabled me to be able to paint all the miniatures that you do tend to get with these miniature board games now. Okay. Highly recommend one of these. as well. These are the Citadel. This is just a Citadel one, but you can get any miniature holder for when you paint. Just makes it easier to rotate. You don't have to hold onto the base then as well. Just makes life a lot easier. As you keep going through, I think I missed a bit on there. Okay, down to here. I keep tapping that camera, so apologies about the camera as well. As we move around. Now I'm thinking of probably a bit of green coming in for the trousers there. I'll have a little decision in a bit. Too many games. Yeah, tell me about it. I think that's the age-old board gamers conundrum. Too many games and not enough time to play them all. And as always, it just increases and increases and increases. It's such a great hobby for that. Cool. Okay. So that's the tunic done now. And you can already see that he's starting to come along already after, what, a quarter of an hour, 15 minutes. And then we're going to move on to the trousers next. Yeah, 'cause when did I start using contrast paints? I started using them for Joan of Arc. I think Joan of Arc was some of the first miniatures I painted with Citadel Contrast. And realised how good a result they were giving. Right, so I reckon green. Green. Do I want green? I don't know. For the trousers, military and green. Or like a... This is a decision, isn't it? Or maybe a bluish colour. I mean, I have got a really... Where is it? Got a lovely... is it Leviathan? Somewhere in here. I thought I did. Killian green. It's not that, is it? There it is. I've got this Leviathan blue, which is like a really dark blue. Or red. I could go for a reddish colour. Oh, red would be quite cool. Yeah, okay. Let's go for a red, and then we'll do a bit of mixing. So, we got my standard red, which is Blood Angels red. Really vibrant red, and obviously that will look ridiculous as a pair of trousers. So what we're going to need to do is thin it down with a little contrast medium. You can't use water with Citadel Contrast Paints. I highly recommend, well, you could do anything, but I highly recommend not doing. But then we want to dull it down, dull this red down. So I'm thinking I might go back to that Agaros Dunes, actually. If I go back to the Agaros Dunes, then we can let that, yeah, tone down that colour. So I'm actually going to switch paint brushes to mix this colour, and I'm going to be mixing it over here in this little palette. So let's start with some Agaros Dunes. Oh, I'm going to just move that miniature so I can actually get to the... So a decent amount of Agaros Dunes. To a small amount of... It's so strong, the pigment in this Blood Angels red. You don't want much of that at all, but we obviously want the red colour to come through. That might be too much. No, I quite like that. Kind of a burgundy colour, I guess. And then a really decent amount of Citadel Contrast medium. So I'm just going to drip it in there. There we go. Okay, that should be a nice... Let's give it a little test on here. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Or does it need to be a bit darker? It's quite light. I think I'm going to darken that up with a little bit of... What, brown or I suppose? No, actually, yeah, let's just try stuff. I'm going to go with a bit of shyish purple. So I know I'm mixing quite a few paints, but, you know, that's the beauty of Citadel Contrast. You don't have to use just the colour straight from the pots. You can mix it up. So that shyish purple should really dull down that colour now. And there we go. That's more the color I was after. Awesome. Okay, so back with that one, and back to my painting brush, the one I want to use. And let's have a look, see how terrible this looks. So yeah, your contrast medium is basically your water for your Citadel Contrast Paints. So it'll thin down the paint, make it less vibrant, but also it's a good mixing agent as well to go with your other paints. I quite like that. Relatively pleased with that kind of tone, that colour. Again, not being afraid to use too much paint here. It's quite a light tone, so having that pooling to contrast it in the crevices is going to be what I'm after. Cool. Okay, I need to get underneath there as well. And hopefully you're seeing with this video how easy this is to do. You literally let the details of the miniature do all the work for you. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that colour. That's pretty cool. Just make sure I haven't left any blank, any white patches. That's the only issue with Citadel Contrast. If you left like a white patch, you can't just bring your paint back and then go over it again. It will, a bit like felt marker pens, if you go over a bit that you've already drawn, it will darken that tone just where you go over it, so it doesn't look good. So you've got to be just a little bit careful when you're using those contrast paints, and that's the only thing you've got to be a little bit careful with. I reckon let's stick with the red theme. I reckon a red neckerchief or necktie would be good as well. So let's go back to that Blood Angels red again and go full on onto that necktie, I guess you call it. Neckerchief, I don't know. Now, this is very, very deep pigment, and you'll see that. So you've got to be careful here, because if it goes on any other bits, you're going to have to get rid of that quick. And there's the camera again. Keep it in the camera. So just taking a little bit extra care on this part. He says as he paints the hair red. God, that's hard to get to. I can't even see it. There we go. Now you notice I've gone over the shoulder there. So what I'm going to do, get a bit of water, and then you go over it, and you pick up that paint, brush it off, pick up that paint, brush it off. Oh, and try not to catch the bit that you've already painted. And then you should be able to just clean up any mistakes you make. So it's not over if you do make those mistakes. Same here. Just a little bit of water. Brush over. Make sure you dry your brush before you go into the paint. Again. And then okay, pretty happy with that. There he is. So we've got the neckerchief now. And we're next onto the belt and the scabbard. And then obviously the metal work as well. So the metal, I have missed a bit off that. Oh, that's terrible. Hang on. This is the beauty. Sometimes when you just have a little look around your model before you let it dry, because there's a bit there which I've completely forgot, which needs to be done. There you go. Okay, cool. And just be careful those like really vibrant reds, blues, they're really vibrant, and they will go over other colours really quite frequently. Right, Wild Wood is next. A fantastic colour. Another, I would say, another staple of the contrast range, especially if you're painting any wood, and a lot of kind of leather as well. I know snakebite leather has leather in the name, but as you've seen here, it's nice to get a bit of a different tone rather than painting all of the leather, as it were. I quite like mixing up a little bit. So wildwood is, I use it quite commonly for belts and scabbards and other bits. So again, just letting the miniature do all the work. And we'll go in here. And certainly for the metal work, don't worry about going over where you're going to do the metal work, because I'm going to be using, well, ideally I want to use lead belcher, but I don't have any lead belcher left. So I replaced it with some, what was it, Runefang steel or something? And it's not as good. I don't like the effect as much. So I'm going to have to get some more lead belcher at some point. So again, I'm not too fussed about going over where I'm going to put metal. Just concentrating on covering those bits. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, that's the belt done, and the scabbard. And to be completely honest, apart from the base, of course, this is the crazy thing, is we just got the metal to do now. And then some facial detail, which we'll put in. We'll get some eyes in there, we'll get some eyebrows and things like that. And then he's basically done. And that's, what are we on? 27 minutes. So he's on a beach. So this base, the great thing about these Solomon Kane miniatures is they've got all sculpted bases on them, which is so cool. Now, a sculpted base, okay, let's have a little think about how we're going to get a sand colour. So I think a little bit of Agorist Dunes, again, our friend Agorist Dunes, which looks like, obviously, his tunic, because that was straight Agorist Dunes. I think we need a little bit, mostly that. But I'm going to put a bit of yellow in there as well. And probably the best Citadel Contrast paint in the range is Yellow. Yellow's such a hard colour to paint on any miniatures, but this contrast paint just literally does all the work for you. So a good chunk of that into that Agorist Dunes. I think we might want to thin that down as well, or else it's going to be a bit too yellow. It won't look like sand. I mean, sand's got kind of like quite a faint tint to it, right? So I'm going to put a good brush full of Citadel Contrast Medium, thin it down a bit, and then I'm pretty happy with that colour for the sand. Might even need more, thinning down even more, but let's see what this comes out like. We want it to look like sand, and sand is notorious. We talk about yellow sand, don't we? When do we describe it? So I think this will be fine. Now, around the boot, I wasn't super careful. I perhaps should have been a little bit more careful with that. So it does look a bit mucky, but not too bad. I'm all right with that. As we continue to just get this sand colour down. Now the contrast paint will literally go down that peak and really highlight it for you. So again, the contrast paint's kind of doing all the work for you. But yeah, there's some brown around there. I'm not really, honestly, I'm not too fussed. I think it'll, if it's not pristine, I don't think that's so bad. It's quite realistic. If you you've got a bit of mud in places and what have you. Okay, so we've done our beach colour now on the base as well. Oops, sorry. Okay, and then we've got Seashells, which are kind of like a brownish cream, I guess. So I think I'm going to go back to Apothecary White. Just chucking a bunch of this onto all the Seashells. As like a base coat, I guess you can call it. And you can certainly kind of blend the contrast paints if you don't let them dry. That will definitely work. So you can blend it on the miniature as well, just like you can with normal paints, to be honest. The problem is that if it ever dries, then yeah, you've got to kind of do a repaint, as it were. And these are all stones, so we're going to go in those with the grey, so I don't have to worry about them. Okay, that's fine. And then I think we go with Skeleton Horde in the first instance. So Skeleton Horde, fantastic for bone. Any type of bone comes out really well with Skeleton Horde. But in this case, we kind of want to do a little bit of gradation, so I think I'm going to pick out some down here and some down here. Let's touch on some of these as well. There we go. And then finally, want a really darkish color. Actually, no, I'm gonna go away to do the finishing touches on these shells. I'm gonna go away from Citadel Contrast Paints and move on to some washes, just some standard washes from the Citadel range. Right, let's get some. I mentioned it before. Some Basilicanum Grey. Another very important contrast paint to have in your repertoire. It's effectively the grey you want for stone, to go over metal, to give you a realistic metal look. So we're just going to go in here and get some stones picked out using, I mean, I suppose they could have been sandstone, but you know, I've started now. So, and it will mix up the tones again a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting. And then there was another stone. Oh, was that a seashell? That's a stone. I've decided that's going to be a stone. Okay. Just make sure I've picked up everything of that stones, those stones, sorry. Like so. Okay. So there you go. It's kind of the base coming along as well at the same time. Might as well do them both at the same time. So I think we'll go crack on with the metalwork, because that's the important bit. So I'd highly recommend getting yourself some lead belcher, which is a base silver, or any silver acrylic paint, to be honest. I've got a layer, this Rune Fang steel, that's it. It works fine. It works absolutely fine, but it's not as good as lead belcher. So giving that a good all mix, using a different brush. I don't really like using metallics on my main brush, so I've just got like a brush I've had for God knows how many years. It's all right. It keeps its point pretty well. It's quite fine. So that's the one. A little bit of water mixed in with that here on my palette. Trying to remember where I've put the paint. Is that it? Hopefully that's it. Let's have a look. Yeah. And then, because what you want is the metallic color coming through. Now, look, this is obviously way too bright for a to leave it as is. So it does 100% need dulling down, but that's what you use the contrast paints for. The beautiful thing about contrast paints, especially with lead belcher, is what I would say. You can do a lead belcher layer, and then you can make any type of metallic you want. You can do different colors of metallic. You can make gold. You can make bronze. You don't need different base colors other than the lead belcher. Let the contrast paints do the work again. So a Yandan yellow is perfect over this silver acrylic paint as a base for your golds. Gives a really nice gold. There you go. So that's the sword done. Now we'll go over to the scabbard. as we there's a little bit of a ring there, isn't there? And then obviously down here. I'm not even going to bother even attempt it down underneath. And then just try and make a little point on your brush, and then we're going to try. Whoops, we're going to try and go into these buckles. Just going over the top, trying to catch the raised parts of that. There we go. And there's the buckles done. Don't forget the pommel. Oh, see? That's why we got the chats. Thierry, thank you very much. Yes, I did almost forget the pommel there. Let's get in there. Bang, bang, bang. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you again. Awesome. Actually, I'll tell you what I might do. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so he's slowly coming along. And we've got to wait for that metallic paint to dry now, which is fine. So let's go on to the face. And let's try and do some facial details. So I went in with snakebite leather for the hair. So I'm going to grab snakebite leather back. And we're going to try and just do some very small eyebrows. Now, this can go wrong really quite easily. But just like I did with the red neck chief, you can delete mistakes. So I just got to get a little bit closer so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to use the edge of the, not the edge, the point of the brush. And I'm just going to do, now I can't actually, I need to look at the, I think that's fine. What you want is to show it. I mean, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You just want to show that kind of color above the eyes just to give it a little bit that you can kind of see that something's happening. So there's the eyebrows done. And now we move on to the eyes themselves. So another really important paint to have is a pot of Wraith bone base. So you've got the spray primer. If you ever want to go over a part of the miniature rather than spraying the whole miniature again to redo part of it or whatever it might be, then you're going to need a Wraith bone base to help with that. So I'm going to grab some of that. And I'm not going to water this down. And I'm just going to put a little bit on the end of my brush. Okay, so like this. And what we're going to do, that might be a bit too much actually, I've overloaded that, is we're going to try and pick out some eyes. So just look to the model to try and get the idea of where the eyes will be. Hopefully they'll be sculpted in. Some are easier than others to get at. Okay, and then hopefully, with a bit of a steady hand, and this does require some practice, to be honest, you can get a couple of eyes like so. Okay, so we've got our eyes now, and you can see that the once you get the whites of the eyes in, the eyebrows will start to pop out as well. So the only issue is just on the inside there of the left. Maybe with the, I might need to go in with some snakebite leather again, just to hit some of those points. I think I've missed some of those, which I'm not super happy with, but yeah, we'll go with that in a minute. Then a kind of black of the pupil. Again, you can, I mean, I've got this brush, for example, what's called the Psycho. And as you can see, we're talking about like a tiny amount. This is probably a better one to use, just to get that tiny pupil as best you can in. You'll need a little bit of water with that, or else it'll just dry before you even get towards the eye itself. The white would have dried by now, by the way. It doesn't take a second to dry. And then we're going to just try and just dot a little dot for the pupil. Let's see how we did. Again, just kind of supporting your hand as you paint. And then that gives the idea of an eye, as it were. I'm pretty happy. Yeah, the eye boys are okay. They'll do. I mean, you know, I'm not going to be displaying this. I'm not sending this to competitions. It's literally going to go down on the board. So I just wanted to represent that. Okay, cool. So now we've done the eyes. The metallic color has now dried. We go in back with our Basilicanum Grey. I'm not doing any gold here. It's going to be pure silver or steel, I suppose you can call it, all the way around. So back to my standard brush, Basilicanum Grey. Grab some of that. And as I said, if you want to make you know what? I'll do a gold hilt. Just to show the gold and how to do it. So bringing on the Basilicanum Grey first of all for the blade. And yes, you can use some bit of red to get the blood on there if you're desperate for that or whatever it might be. Same here. Let's put a decent amount on there to go into that recess. A little bit there as well. And then down here as well. There we go. Okay, so that's the silver done. Pretty happy with that. Just bring that towards the end. So we've got a bit of a shine on that top surface there. A little bit pooling down there as well. So just brush. So don't be afraid to move the paint around once you put it on at first. Right, it's the Basilicanum Grey. And then we're going to go back to the Iyanden Yellow. Just to finish off the gold. And just to show you how easy it is to get that gold look. So again, just placing it on. Just make sure you haven't got much yellow onto your brush. This will be quite a bright gold because of the nature of Runefang steel. But will hopefully look the part. As we go around. Just make sure I hit all the parts of that one. And we're also chucking a bit of gold here, why not? Oh, hang on. Oh, I've missed a bit. I've missed the bottom of the hilt. Okay, that's fine. The pommel, not hilt. Pommel? Hilt? I don't know. So we've still got a little bit of that Runefang on my palette. So let's pick that up, and it's just here. Perfect. Okay, should we get some wash and do these shells? I think so. Just need to grab them. Right. So I think we'll go with 2 washes. We'll go for the main staple that everyone spills, which is Nuln Oil. I don't know a single painter who hasn't spilt Nuln Oil when they've had it, and Agrax Earthshade. So we've got 2 washes here to use. I'm going to start with the Agrax and then move on to Nuln Oil. So starting with the Agrax, and I do have to do the buttons, I know. The buttons on his tunic, so I know that's happening. So what I'm going to do is just just to give some color deviations to the shells. I'm going to leave the top kind of as is. I'll also do this bit as well, a bit like that, and again this one as well. Maybe going like that, all over it actually, this one. So a tiny bit of, I mean, you do not need to do this. This is completely optional at the end. I just wanted to show a little bit of difference in the shell. And then what I'm going to do is just at the base, I'm going to chuck in some Nuln Oil. and maybe just some in the recesses here. Bit there, bit there. Certainly at the start of this one, I'll give it some normal at the start. There we go. That'll do. So let's get some Basilicanum Grey back to just do those buckles. So they're a little bit too bright. They do look pretty cool. It might dull them too much. I'm actually quite happy with how they've turned out. I'm not actually going to do anything to the buckles. I'm happy how they are. Normally you would go over them, but I don't think it needs it, so I'm not going to bother. So I'm just going to go back to the ironed in yellow and finish off the sword. I'm not quite sure how that's working. It's like it's going through his shirt, which is a bit odd. But hey, who am I to complain? It's definitely part gold. And you can see how good that gold looks. And the metal. It really just comes through. So easy. Because it also contrasts the paint. So if you've got a lot of crevices, recesses in the armor or whatever you're doing as a paint, then by nature the contrast paint will go into it. Right, okay. So that's Jack pretty much done, actually. 46 minutes. I will need to paint his base, which is literally just going to be using the Abaddon Black, just to go round it. And then that is how quick Citadel Contrast Miniatures can give you a decent result. Now, I'm not saying this is as good as you can get, 100% not. It's not. You're not going to win competitions by just doing that. But if you've got a board game that you're trying to paint up and you want, or you're kind of starting painting as well, that's what I'd also recommend. It's really good. They're fantastic. About £4 for each pot. So, you know, what have I got? I've probably got about 15 different paints. So, you know, it can mount up, but you don't need to start with 15. You can start with some of the most important ones and then just build up your collection as you go along. A pot will last you quite a long time. You have to paint quite a lot of paint, miniatures to get through a pot of paint. Spilling it, that's a different matter. So what I'm going to do is just going to, as I do with pretty much all my miniatures, to be honest, is just paint the base with this black. I've added a bit of water there just to let it flow. Not much, but you do need to thin down. If you're using normal paints, you have to thin down. Number one tip, don't use the... Oh man, there's white there. Whoops. I just realised I had the Wraith bone right next to the black, which isn't that clever. Sorry, yeah, thin your paints. If you just take normal acrylic paint straight out of the Citadel tub, they will not paint on. They won't flow. It'll be very kind of chalky. Not chalky, I don't know what you call it. Bitty, I suppose. And it just won't work. Anyway, there's the base. And that is Jack Hollister complete for Solomon Kane from Mythic Games. Such a dynamic pose, so cool for that. I probably do need to go up and well, this is not looking great anymore, is it? This is my display stand. I wouldn't call it the best one in the world. It's looking pretty scratched up now. But just to show kind of what we've got here, we've got Jack Hollister, extraordinaire, sword jeweler extraordinaire on the beach. You can see up there as well. Up here, we've got a little bit of bleed off the red onto the shirt. So, yeah, not a perfect job, but certainly passable for a board game standard, tabletop standard in terms of what you want. Okay, so that was the... Oh, I've got to be careful of the black there. Kind of went onto there. There he is. I mean, those eyes aren't amazing, but for what you want, for what I want, sorry, it's absolutely fine. Cool. Well, thanks for coming along, Mads and Thierry. And if anyone's watching as well, I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully, relatively quick painting tutorial. I'm still going to paint lots of miniatures to paint yet. I mean, I just finished Toad from MCP with the Citadel Contrast Paints. I'm trying to finish my Blood Rage set with the Snake Clan. Again, Citadel Contrast Paints. They're coming along. But that, as I imagine with many of you, a big backlog of miniatures to paint. Soon to be horrendous for me with Joan of Arc coming through, the all-in. I don't know how many miniatures, like so many thousand miniatures or something ridiculous. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, very much looking forward to Senjutsu as well, and paint up some samurai. That's going to be awesome. So until next time, keep painting, keep gaining, and stay safe. Thanks for now.